people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy.
The undisputed super featherweight champion of the world, Alicia, the Baumgardner.
That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. The Alicia Baumgardner versus Delphine Persoon undisputed super featherweight title fight that ended in a no contest.
Let's talk about what we saw.
In spite of there being no official outcome, things were not looking good for Delphine Persoon, the former champion, throughout the course of the fight. She looked slow, sluggish, outgunned compared to the fresher, younger fighter, the fresher, fitter fighter in Alicia Baumgardner that was beating her to the punch with some regularity, scoring a knockdown towards the tail end of the first round.
Off a hard left hand, a short left hand on the inside.
Start of the first round, you see that Alicia comes out, stays with Delphine Persoon, doesn't try to stay away from her, doesn't try to circle away. She's mid-range, close enough to get in with punches, but not so close that she can't get out.
Lighter on her feet than Delphine, faster on her feet, faster with the jab.
Faster overall. Speed. Alicia Baumgardner's speed, sharpness had a lot to do with why this fight looked the way that it looked for as long as it lasted, though it didn't last very long. And while it lasted, you got the sense that if this contest is allowed to go on, Alicia is going to stop Delphine Persoon because Delphine just could not contend with Alicia's speed.
Athleticism, angles, form.
It just wasn't looking good for the veteran fighter. In the fourth round, there was an accidental clash of heads that resulted in a nasty cut over Delphine Persoon's eye. The ringside doc had one look at it, and they decided to wave it off. It was an anticlimactic finish.
I think they should have allowed it to go on.
Let it go on for one more round. You let it go on for one more round, and if nothing changes, and Delphine's taking too much punishment, then you will have at least completed 4 rounds so that you can get an official outcome. On my scorecard, Delphine Persoon didn't win a round.
She was off to a terrible start, and it wasn't getting better. She couldn't get her engine going because of Alicia's speed and athleticism. Alicia effectively made Delphine look every day, every week, and every month of 39 years old. And that was off a year layoff. If it were another fighter, I don't think they would have been able to do that because no other fighters have been able to do that. It's not like Delphine hasn't been fighting and she hasn't been winning. She has. And staying in character. She was coming off of a string of victories, and she, unlike Alicia Baumgardner, actually fought in the last 12 months, but when faced with her, she just couldn't keep up.
Will there be a rematch?
I'm not sure. We saw the exact same thing happen when Mayerline Rivas defended her WBA title against her then mandatory challenger, Nazarena Romero. It was the exact same thing. An accidental clash of heads, a cut open.
That fight was scored a draw, but afterwards, there was no rematch ordered by the WBA, so I'm not completely sure we'll see a rematch ordered here between these two, and if one is, it really doesn't favor Delphine.
How long would it take to make, and how many months older will Delphine be? She already looked her age in there yesterday.
It's not going to get any better. This fight happened in the shadow of the Top Rank show. This fight happened in the shadow of the Mayer versus Ryan fight that got rave reviews. It was an excellent fight that we'll talk about in another video. This fight having happened on Brinks TV and being promoted, quote-unquote promoted, by the Global Combat Collective, it didn't get as much attention as it should have, being honest.
It wasn't open to the public.
On a platform that most boxing fans are not familiar with, I hate to say that this was not a good look for Alicia. This was not a good look for the undisputed super featherweight champion, that at this point, she should be fighting on a bigger stage, and this wasn't that.
As far as the performance, she did her job and looked good doing it. I didn't think it was going to be that easy, but she made it look easy as far as the performance. But the platform,
it seemed very mom and pop, rinky-dink, I want to say. I want to say it seemed mediocre.
The platform.
This fight could have been fought on a bigger stage, and I feel like this Global Combat Collective, which is in connection with Alicia's manager, Nelson Lopez, I just feel like that guy was trying to do too much.
You're not a promoter.
This thing took a lot longer to make than it should have. Alicia lost a lot of time that she's not going to get back as a result. She will have only fought once this entire calendar year, and it's all because...
You thought that you could promote Alicia's fight better than Matchroom? Do you think you've got the megaphone that they've got, the ability, the capability? You don't.
A lot of times in this sport, I see that the fighters as managers, they get ahead of themselves.
Like David McWhorter and Teofimo Lopez.
It's what this kind of reminds me of. In pursuit of a few more dollars, just a few more, it came at a great expense. I think it did. There should have been more eyes on this fight.
Alicia is said to be a free agent now.
I don't know that she renegotiates for a better deal with Matchroom, or she tries her luck in the open market. I don't know what I think. She should probably stay with Matchroom. There's nobody left to fight. There are no big fights left at 130, but there are some decent-sized fights up there at 135. Matchroom just so happens to have 3 champions at 135 pounds, and even if what Alicia has her heart set on is a Katie Taylor fight, even if you don't get it, there are other fights that you can get that do involve Matchroom fighters. So I think she should stick it out with them.
Though ultimately, I ain't her manager. I ain't the one in charge. I'm just a spectator in what is this spectator sport, and that's what I think. I think she should stick it out with Matchroom.
If you could snap your finger though and make any fight next, what fight would you make?
Me, Crawford. I'll go Crawford first. Crawford first, and then we can talk about things.
What holes do you see in this game?
I see both. Both of them have holes. Both of them do.
When Loma was the unbeatable
And I
guy.
think the main hole that they have, they don't believe in themselves.
I feel like American boxing and the American boxer finds himself in decline because the American boxer is trying to do anything and everything but what they are supposed to do. So you have Teofimo Lopez putting a tank fight on the back burner to continue to talk up a Terrence Crawford fight.
A distraction.
A distraction from the fact that he himself is not fighting. This year will have come and gone, and Teofimo, all he will have done is fight Steve Claggett. That's it. He could have fought one more time before this year was out. In a Steve Claggett fight, he didn't look good. He didn't look fantastic. He could have put distance between himself and that performance by having another fight.
He didn't.
He isn't, because he would rather do interviews. Interviews about a Gervonta Davis fight, which isn't likely, and interviews about a Crawford fight. And what's funny about the Crawford fight, while I'm not against it, you don't have the autonomy to pursue it. You're still under contract with Top Rank.
Whatever you want to do, you have to run it by them first for the life of that contract, the duration of that contract, which is still active, it's still actionable. Has your promoter actually made a play to do that fight? Because nothing happens unless they okay it.
You know, the content creators are going to circulate as many videos like this one as they can because it's good for their metrics. They need the content. They eat it up. But all Teofimo is doing, all he's really doing, is distracting you from the fact that he avoided a Brian Norman fight.
By making you a promise to deliver a bigger one.
He could have fought again. He's not injured. He's free right now and not fighting because he doesn't want to fight.
You're just trying to distract people from the fact that you're sitting out right now for no other reason than you don't want to fight.
Top Rank was making the Brian Norman fight and you pulled out for whatever reason you pulled out. So all you can do is interviews and make empty promises. I hope he does get the Crawford fight.
I don't really think he wants it. I think he's clout chasing.
Teofimo has amassed a small cult, a small rabble of supporters who actually believe him when he says that he wants the Crawford fight, him knowing it's very unlikely to happen given where he campaigns and where Terrence is right now.
You're at 140. He just debuted at 154. What are you proposing, a catch weight? Do you think he's gonna go for that?
You know he isn't. And that's why you're calling him out. That's why you're using his name, because you're not making any news with what you're doing and any of your fights. What separates pursuing a fight with quote-unquote clout chasing is when you're clout chasing, you're using a fighter's name to gain headlines with no real intention of facing them. That's what he's doing now with Terrence. If you want Terrence, then go to 154.
That's where he holds a title. It's not like you're trying to unify your own division.
You're not. You're trying to appear big and bad and brave by targeting one of the best fighters in the world, number one to some, number two to others, better still, higher ranked than you.
A better fighter than you? Nobody thinks you're a better fighter than Terrence Crawford, not even your fans. If push came to shove and they made a fight between him and you, none of them would stake any money on you.
Not unless they want to lose it. A fighter the level of a Terrence Crawford doesn't lose to a George Kambosos, doesn't struggle with a Sandor Martin or a Jermaine Ortiz or a Steve Claggett. A fighter on that level, his level, not your level, because you did struggle with those people. Now you want to pretend like we didn't see it or it didn't happen.
Because the American fighter wants to do anything and everything but what they're supposed to do.
You're supposed to fight. If you want to put distance between yourself and that lackluster performance earlier this year, you fight. You fight again. You put on a better showing. You didn't want to do that. You wanted to piss away the time.
Go ahead.
Waste more of your own time with these shenanigans. That's why you haven't even been on pay-per-view yet.
Stupid shit.
Javante's been on pay-per-view, and Devin's been on pay-per-view, Terrence has been on pay-per-view. You haven't.
Ryan has.
You haven't. The American boxer is trying to do anything and everything but what they are supposed to do. You're supposed to be fighting, not doing this many interviews.
You're supposed to be grafting, not grifting.
Fast becoming little more than just an afterthought that's fading into the background. Because what is T.O. actually doing, aside from interviews, to get anybody excited about anything?
You think a guy who got dropped 2 times by Sandor Martin wants to fight Terrence Crawford? So what are you, an idiot?
Some of my frenemies had a really shitty week, and unfortunately for them, I'm here to unpack all the drama. Let's go. Alright, let's start with last weekend's fight in the UK. An entertaining fight, and I like AJ. However, this was another huge L for Eddie Hearn, who is literally 0-11 to Frank Warren this year. This continues the Matchroom curse, meaning if you sign with Matchroom, you're either guaranteed to lose or get injured. To make matters worse, Eddie Hearn faced off with his old buddy Devin Haney in the crowd at Wembley. Eddie, you can't build a fighter to save your life. Anthony Joshua had the world at his fingertips, and you found a way to fumble his career.
This whole Clapback Thursday thing, I was kind of thinking about doing one myself for him, because I've got a great impersonation of him, but no, I just do it to the... But if I was doing one today, it's Friday today, right? So it's like, I don't know, Fuck Off Friday. It's like, hey, welcome to Fuck Off Friday. He does his silly voice, doesn't it? It would go a little bit like this. It would go, it's the segment of the week where I pretend I'm really happy, but I'm burning inside. Come on, AJ, he's the best built fighter of all time. But Golden Boy, who have you got left? Canelo's gone. He hates you. He sued you. Jaime Munguia, you pretend you represent him. You don't. He's gone to Top Rank. Virgil Ortiz sold a couple of thousand tickets and Ryan Garcia's banned. And now you're being sued again by Devin Haney. Have a great day.
Oscar's been having a lot of fun with those Clapback Thursday segments he's been putting together, which is tantamount to him talking shit about people he doesn't like. Dana White, Eddie Hearn, Canelo especially. On all the Clapback Thursday segments, Canelo is a guy he spends a lot of time on, but he's just throwing stones in a glass house. You talk about Eddie Hearn, what about Eddie Hearn? His fighter lost.
Like your fighter lost. Do you remember when Giovanni Santillan came to your side of things and beat the hell out of your fighter, Alexis Rocha?
Do you remember when Eddie's fighter, Dimitri Bivol, do you remember when he beat the heck out of your fighter? When he took your guy, Zerto, to school? Do you remember that?
Never mind what's on the scoreboard for Queensbury versus Matchroom. What's on the scoreboard for Golden Boy versus Matchroom? How are you holding up? How are you doing?
Matchroom is currently valued as the most valuable promotional company in all of boxing. What is Golden Boy valued at? Matchroom was just part of a huge show a historic show in the United Kingdom that broke the attendance record at Wembley. When's the last time you've done a show like that? Have you ever done a show like that? Promoted a show like that?
When are you going to?
Do you think you could sell out a football stadium with Zerto Ramirez fights or Alexis Rocha fights? Which one of your guys at Golden Boy can do in the United States what AJ does in the United Kingdom? What? Because he lost?
That makes him a failure?
But you lost, didn't you, Oscar? You lost. To Felix Trinidad, you lost. To Shane Mosley, you lost. To Floyd Mayweather, to Bernard Hopkins, to Manny Pacquiao. Does that make you a failure? Stones in a glass house, Oscar. You're throwing stones in a glass house. You're talking about Eddie having a falling out with Devin Haney because you didn't have a falling out with Ryan Garcia, and before that you didn't have a falling out with Sinicia Estrada and Canelo Alvarez, more famously.
What about him and Devin?
You think you're saying something by pointing out that they're not getting along right now? How many fighters do you not get along with?
Canelo Alvarez called you a thief, said you tried to steal money from him. Juan Manuel Marquez said the same thing, and him and Canelo don't get along, so it's gotta mean something that two guys that don't get along agree on one thing: you're a thief.
A crook. You talk about Eddie not getting along with Devin because you get along so famously with Ryan.
Ryan would leave you at the drop of a hat to go over to Al Heyman's PBC if he could.
Canelo did leave you for Eddie Hearn. Sinicia Estrada left you for Top Rank. It appears that Jaime Munguia has done the same thing. It appears that he's a Top Rank fighter now.
You don't need to worry about Devin and Eddie and Anthony.
So this whole thing about Clapback Thursday is just you talking shit about people you don't like. They can say those same things about you. The difference is they have better things to do and you don't, because your eyes ain't on the ball.
You don't need to worry about them. They're still doing better than you. Whatever they're doing, it's still better than what you're doing.
So what's the point in pointing out one or some of their pitfalls, their errors, when you make just as many errors, if not more, than they do? It's something a woman would do.
A bitter one.
What you're saying about him, he can turn right around and say about you. The difference is he doesn't initiate these exchanges. You do, because you want to be acknowledged. You want to argue. You want to vent. You want to channel all that negative energy, that hostility you're feeling because you're jealous.
People don't hate down. They hate up.
Neither Canelo Alvarez or Eddie Hearn have a date set aside every week where they're going to talk about Oscar De La Hoya. They have better things to do with their time, that they're not going to dedicate their time to something as trivial and infantile and catty. It's giving Real Housewives of Atlanta vibes. Real Housewives of Boxing, Housewives of LA.
He acts like he's everybody's jilted ex. He just can't move on and let things go. Let the past be in the past.
Get on with your life. He can't because he doesn't have that much going on his side of things. You can point out how Matchroom's had a string of bad luck with the Queensberry Promotions team, but overall, those have been successful shows, whether it's Joshua versus Dubois or Matchroom versus Queensberry.
Did you forget what the point of being a promoter is? The point of being a promoter is to put on successful shows that turn over a profit.
Is that what you've been doing? No, you've been scratching and sniffing for years now, ever since Canelo left you.
Clap back at that.
Of course you want to elicit these arguments and exchanges with Eddie, because you're miserable.
You're bitter.
Moreover, you have a lot of time on your hands. A lot of time for stuff like that. They don't.
Canelo, Eddie.
They've got better things to do than worry about you.